The Bijao is a species of plant belonging to the family of the Marantaceae known to science since 1775. It is a plant that grows in the American tropics. American tropics, whose leaves are used in some countries to wrap tamales, halakas and other baked goods. Tamales, halakas and other soft foods in Colombia. It is also known as Bijao. They are plants that reach a size of 1 to 4 meters high. Its leaves are sheets that measure from 30 to 150 centimeters long and 20 to 60 centimeters wide. Is a common species found in disturbed sites uprooted or in swampy areas at an altitude of 0 to 300 meters above sea level. We are today in Agropecuaria, the illusion, a small land. But we read out up to the VAT to this land. We have it cultivated practically all are. We have cultivated practically all are about 5 blocks. We have cultivation on the second floor, and we are going to talk about it. The Bijao leaf is the main crop here, is under the trees, because it needs some shade, so that the strong suns do not deteriorate the leaf. With the trip we have divided the farm into 6 lots. We rotate the lots. First we cut one lot, then we move on to the next one, and when we finish the last one, we must cut the first one we cut. In the case of Bijao, we agronomists call it the residence time. That is to say, the time between cutting and cutting. The residence time more or less, so that there are leaves that justify the cutting and that are ready to be used for wrapping. Bijao is more or less 3 months. To start this crop, because it did not start that big for us some 25 years ago, and the coffee berry borer began to generate economic losses in the cultivation of coffee. The coffee did not meet the quality requirements, so it remained worth nothing. We were lucky enough to go into the travel business, and we were eliminating coffee and planting with Bijao flax. Here we started with a hill, and we were propagating and spreading, and today we manage about 8 blocks in Bijao. We have the luxury of rotation, because they are leaves, because if they were fruits we would have to wait for harvesting. Fertilization of flowers, filling of fruits, all that as it happens. With the orange trees and as it happens with the other things we have here, but as they are leaves practically the production is permanent. Leaves grow and develop, and then that allows us to have a weekly cash flow, that allows us to have the workers and to work and to function, and that allows us to have a weekly cash flow, workers and to function and supply a market that is always unknown. Somehow there are crops of Bijao. In Santa Barbara there are crops of Bijao in Bijao crops or in Yolombo, and I have had to visit because of my profession and my experience herein. My profession and my experience here in Bijao. However, Medellin and the Aburra Valley have many factories, especially of tamales, in Envigado and tamales in Envigado. In the same Medellin a lot of tamales are sold. We are very tamaleros, and that fortunately is wrapped in this Bijao leaf that has some properties. Properties to preserve the food and resists the high temperatures at high temperatures. Tamale resists the high temperatures at which the tamales are cooked, so the topic of using Bijao is very much ours. Surely as the plastics are eliminated in society. Plastics are eliminated in society. The Bijao will have to re-emerge again to pack other things that used to be packaged in the past in the cuisitos. Meat because there are no refrigerators in some indigenous communities where there are no refrigerators. And all that, the Bijao leaf is still used a lot for wrapping because it really preserves the food that is wrapped there has antioxidants according to a study by the One of the agronomic aspects that attracted my attention to Bijao, especially in these steep slopes, is that I wanted to find a crop that would protect the soil, and so Bijao, as you can see in the pictures, is a very interesting plant cover. You will see here a lot of organic matter on all sides of this land. Apart from the organic matter that we throw in from the chickens, we compost it with the chicken manure. You will see that all the dry leaves every time the Bijao is cleaned and all of that remains there as organic matter. Bijao is cleaned and all that remains there is organic matter, and it is a vegetal cover that protects the soil especially from the raindrops. The raindrop does not hit the soil directly like a bomb, and disintegrates the clods of earth, but it only hits the Bijao leaf. We have had in 25 years an episode of a hailstorm that left us without a Bijao leaf. Or at least a month and a half approximately, because many of them broke. But they protected the soil, because a hailstorm or a rain was very large. The soil, and in these vacant lots you have to take this precaution of another. Another aspect of the Bijao is that it does not suffer from pests and diseases. We have not been able to find anything, but once we had a plague of crickets in a very dry season. And what we did was to let out the hens that we have in a pen, Creole hens, and they were happy eating crickets. The crickets controlled the crickets, without the need of poisoning them again. In Antioquia, for having piscos, and having them loose here, as you think we had to eat the piscos, because they started to eat Bijao. And they were going to kill us with the Bijao. The Bijao, those piscos, were the males to eat Bijao, and then those are the plagues we. The rest of the pests we have had, the crickets and piscos, nothing attacks it. Look, they are clean leaves. Healthy leaves without adding anything more than organic matter, and initially clean after cutting. Clean and fertilize and leave the crop still. And it regenerates itself, as I said, a residence time of 3 months, and you can cut again. You have to know which are the leaves to cut. Here we classify the leaves into large and medium size. We have not found much market for the small ones. There is also a market for them. Another issue is that during the months of June or July there is a beautiful flower that blooms. The Bijao bush, but it is a flower that even if we try to find a market for it, because it is very beautiful, it lasts very little time and it has a very beautiful orange. The effect on the bush is that all the energy of the bush goes to the flower, and the bush goes to the flower, so in those months of June, July the leaves are not so big, because the energy went to the production of the flower. How do we fertilize? We use poultry manure. Many times we prepare compost with the poultry manure. We take the poultry manure, we mix it with soil, we apply yeast, we apply phosphoric rock and molasses. And we leave it for 45 days. We have a thermometer, a long thermometer that enters in the compost. And in the measure in which the temperature indicates 50 to 60 degrees, we have to turn it, and we turn it over to oxygenate the whole system so that all the microorganisms that are there accelerating the decomposition and stabilization of the organic matter, so that they continue. And that process ends when the compost pile is no longer heated. The compost is no longer heated, the process is ready, and that lasts more or less 45 days. Then we distribute that organic matter in the crop, and each plant is, depending on the bush, because there are small bushes that only have 4 or 5 hills, there are others with 10 or 15 hills, so depending on the bush we add the amount of organic matter and fertilize the roots of the Bijao. But here we have a secret that not many people know yet and that we need them to know, because here we also make liquid fertilizers with the fique juice. The fique juice here, I believe that you could observe some fique bushes in the process of unbalancing, because one is left with the fiber in the hand, and in the bagasse we collect the juice, and we also make an anaerobic fermentation that lasts 25 days. During those 25 days, by means of a process investigated by the University of Narino, we are adding sulfates, mineral salts. This fertilizer has 11 different nutrients: nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, magnesium, manganese, zinc, gold, copper, iron. And with this we can almost prepare what we can call a nutrient bomb that we can pour through the soil. Of nutrients that we can put them by the root, or we can put them in the leaves. Some of these nutrients enter better through the leaves, so it is a foliar fertilizer. The dose for foliar is not as concentrated as the one we use when we are going to fertilize by the root or with erratic fertilizer. So after we put organic fertilizer, we put this fertilizer pump made with the fertilizer and the juice of the fique. With the juice of the fique we pump it to everything green, and you look at the color of the leaves, which is a very intense green. In the Bijao leaf market you cannot take yellowish malnourished leaves because it is not useful to the people. It is not that they do not comply with the function of the return, but they give a bad appearance, so you have to take them green, and you are as they are here. In addition to fertilizing with this liquid fertilizer made with the juice of the fique, we have found that it seems to have a repellent action on some pests. For example, in the orange trees, we were having a little pest that is a worm that gets into the orange and begins to destroy the orange fly. The fruit fly gives many crops that ripen yellow to many fruits that ripen yellow, and that is why we have not only worked here that the fruit fly has disappeared. Fruit flies disappeared, 2 applications of that, and there were no more fruit flies here on the farm. We have been applying it here in the farm in mango, in Tommy mango. Above all, that also gives a lot of fruit flies, and we are also doing some work with this fertilizer in organic cocoa. With this fertilizer in organic cocoa in La Guajira, so we need to make this fertilizer known with its insect repellent properties, with its nutritional properties. And there are also those who tell us that it controls some fungus or fungicide properties. We have talked with the National University of Bogota to see if they start to check in the fique juice what is the active ingredient that makes these effects. We use then guajua leaf that has a good silicon content, also that serves as a nutrient to all these crops that we are having this fertilizer. To all these crops that we are growing, this soil is not the same as it was 25 years ago. This soil has improved enormously, and look, although the production is intense, it is that almost every 3 months we cut the soil, we maintain more or less the fertility of the sun. It has not been exhausted yet for the production that we hope to obtain. Another issue that we have here is that of the chickens. We were forced to have good organic matter, and that is why we have been expanding our hens. They buy our eggs. But the poultry manure is fundamental for this farm to be able to make the compost and to be able to make. We have to keep a separate register because we not only sell the eggs but also the frozen hens and the fertilizers that we get from there.